What's up guys, and welcome to Pokemon Origins Generation 7 Overview. In this video I'm going to be going over all of the new Pokemon introduced in Generation 7 and talking about, well, their origins. So imagine a normal episode of Origins, just condensed down to look at the basis of their designs as well as where their names come from. So hopefully it'll be a fairly quick fire video going over every single Pokemon. So without further ado, let's just get this show on the road. Obviously, to start off, we have the Grass starter line with Rowlet, Dartrix and Decidueye. They are obviously based on owls, as you might expect, as well as having some sort of inspiration from Robin Hood, especially Decidueye. In terms of what species of owl, likely the still owl due to Decidueye's very long legs, and in terms of namings, Rowlet is Round and Owlet, Owlet being a baby owl. Dartrix is a combination of Dart and Strix, Dart obviously in reference to the fact that it shoots dart-like leaves, and Strix is a genus of owl. And then Decidueye is a combination of Deciduous, which is a tree or a type of tree that sheds its leaves every year, and then Deadeye, which is defined as an expert marksman. Moving then to the Fire starter line, we have Litten, Torracat and Incineroar, obviously based on, cats and felines in general, with Litten being based on a little kitten, Torracat being based on a general house cat, and then Incineroar more a tiger-like sort of creature. And then name-wise, Litten is a combination of Lit in terms of lit of fire and kitten. Torracat is a combination of torrid and cat, where torrid means something sort of extremely or oppressively hot, and then Incineroar is a combination of incinerate and roar. Then finally, for the starters, we have the Water starter line, which is Popplio, Brionne and Primarina, based generally on sea lions, as well as getting some inspiration from sirens, as well as, in terms of Primarina, Prima Donna, which is a leading lady in terms of a play or production. Popplio's name is a combination of Popo, which is Hawaiian for bull, and then sea lion. Brionne is another combination of Brio, which is sort of like a vigour in your performance, and then obviously Sea Lion once more, and then Primarina is a combination of Prima Donna, which is the leading lady in a production, and Marina, reference to sea and ocean, because of course they are water types. Moving then to the birds of the region, we have Pikipek, Trumbeak and Toucanon, based on pileated woodpeckers, and then obviously a toucan once we get to Toucanon. In terms of their names, Pikipek is a combination of Picus, which is Latin for woodpecker, and peck, and then Trumbeak is a combination of trumpet and beak due to the fact that its beak actually bends at the end, similar to a trumpet. Toucanon then is a combination of toucan and cannon, possibly a reference to its signature move, Beak Blast, which heats up before it attacks, very similar to toucans in real life who have very hot beaks. Then if we move on to the normal sort of rat of the generation, we have Yungoos and Gumshoos, which of course are not based on rats, they're based on mongooses. In terms of their names, Yungoos is clearly a combination of young and mongoose due to the fact that it's a pre-evolution, and then Gumshoos is a combination of Gumshoe in terms of a detective, and then mongoose due to the fact that Gumshoos' design is similar of that to a detective's. And then we come to the bugs of Alola. We have Grubbin, Charjabug and Vikavolt. Generally they're based on, obviously for Grubbin's sake, a grub. Charjabug is based on just a cocoon form of a bug, and then obviously Vikavolt here is a stag beetle. And name-wise, Grubbin is a combination of grub and then the other word that has grub in it, which is grubbing, to search for or to scavenge, so generally it could just come from that word on its own. Charjabug is then a combination of charge and bug in reference to the fact that it can charge up its allies, and then Vikavolt just comes from volt. It probably works out better in its Japanese form, really. Then we have some fighting types. We have Crabrawler and its evolution Crabominable. They're based on coconut crabs because of Alola and Hawaii and such, but it could also, in terms of Crabominable, be based on a Yeti crab, because obviously if we look at its names we can see that it's like a very clear connotation, and the fact that Crabominable is a part ice type. Crabrawler's name is a combination of crab and brawler, linking to the fighting type, and then Crabominable is a combination of crab and abominable, in reference to the abominable snowman, the Yeti, etc., linking into its basis on the Yeti crab. Next up we have the very flamboyant bird of Alola, known as Oratorio, which has a different appearance on different islands. In terms of what it's based on the Hawaiian honey creeper, which is a bird that lives in Hawaii that has many different types, different colourings and such across the different islands. And in terms of the name, it's probably a combination of Oriole, which is a type of bird, and choreography, in reference to the fact that the 4 forms of Oratorio are based on 4 different dances. For its baile form, it's based on flamenco dancing. For its pom-pom form, it's based on cheerleading. For its pow form, it's based on just general traditional Hawaiian dance, and then the sensu form is based on Japanese dances, with the fans of course. Then next up we have the more bugs, basically. We have Cutiefly and Ribombee, which are both based on bee flies, very simply. Cutiefly's name is a combination of obviously cutie and fly, And then Rabumbi's name is a bit more complicated, but it's very simply a combination of ribbon, thanks to the ribbon tied around its neck, Bombilidae, which is the sort of scientific name of bee flies, and then bee again, so very simple there. Then we have Rockruff and its split form evolution line of Lycanroc. They're based on obviously Rockruff being some sort of dog, probably a Spitz type breed, and then obviously Lycanroc's midday form being a wolf, and then Lycanroc's midnight form being a werewolf. In terms of naming, Rockruff is a combination of rock and rough, either coming from rough, the fact that rocks are rough, or the fact that dogs go rough. And then Lycanroc is a combination of lycanthropy, which is the basically disease you get when you are a werewolf, and then rock again. Follow that here we have Wishy-Washy and its two different forms. In terms of design, Wishy-Washy's normal form, its solo form, is clearly a Pacific sardine, so you can see the sort of different the similarities between the design there. And obviously its school form is based on the idea that those sorts of species of fish actually school up and look like large masses. In terms of the name, Wishy-Washy just comes generally from wishy-washy, so that's a bit wishy-washy, just linked up there. Then next we have Marini and Toxapex, the new water poison types. They're based loosely on sea urchins, but as well as this they're based on the Crown of Thorns starfish due to the fact that they have several different legs that have spikes on them. Crown of Thorns, starfish, thorns, etc. In terms of the names, Marini's name is a combination of marine and meanie, so marine obviously related to water, and meanie being the fact that it's not a very nice Pokemon. It picks on Corsola, it eats Corsola's coral parts, which isn't the best. And then Toxapex is probably a combination of Toxic and then Apex, which could be Apex meaning the top predator. Toxapex might be the top predator since it does prey on Corsola, but as well as this, it might link into Apex meaning top and then Crown of Thorns, so crown, it's the king sort of thing, being a loose link in there. Then we have some ground types in Mudbray and Mudsdale. Mudbray is based on a donkey, and Mudsdale is based on a horse. In terms of their names, we should be a bit more specific. Mudbray is a combination of mud and bray. Bray is the type of sound donkeys make when you say donkeys can bray. And then Mudsdale is a combination of mud and Clydesdale, which is the type of horse it is based off of. We follow these ground types up with some more water types in Dupida and Araquanid. They are based on spiders generally, possibly the diving bell spider, since they are obviously clearly using bubbles of water, and that's what the diving bell spider does. Dupida is a combination of dew and spider, which links into the fact that in the games it can only be found in the morning when there's dew on the ground. Araquanid is a combination of arachnid, which is obviously linking to spiders again, and aqua, linking to water. Then we have some grass types to follow this up with Fomantis and Lurantis, both based on praying mantises, and obviously the linking of the grass type there because mantises can disguise themselves to look a lot like leaves. Fomantis is a combination of faux, which is French for false, because of the fact that they are leaves, so they are false leaves because they are actually Pokemon, and Mantis. Lurantis, again, similarly, being a combination of lure and mantis. It uses the fact that it looks a bit like leaves to lure Pokemon in before grabbing hold of them and probably eating them. Then, more grass types to follow, we have Morlul and its evolution Shinotic. They're both based on bioluminescent mushrooms, i.e. mushrooms that glow in the dark, because linking with the fairy typing, I suppose. Morlul is a combination of Morchella and Lull, Morchella being a type of mushroom, and similarly, Shinotic is a combination of Shiitake, everyone knows Shiitake mushrooms, and Hypnotic, due to the fact that both Lull and Hypnotic, sort of sending Pokemon to sleep and stuff like that. Then we fire it up a bit with Salandit and Salazzle, but it's also a bit toxic in here, and they are both based on salamanders of sorts, or they could be based on the Japanese fire belly lizard because it has some fiery patterns on it, so might link in there. Salandit's name is a combination of salamander and bandit, and then Salazzle's name is possibly a combination of salamander and dazzle. I really couldn't think of anything to make up the second half, but dazzle seems to be the best one since obviously it's a female evolution, so it could be dazzling its prey. Then we have some nice cuddly animals. We have Stuffle and Beware, obviously based on stuffed animals, but they do both of them look a bit like red pandas, so that might be a secondary inspiration there. In terms of names, Stuffle is a combination of stuffed and animal, so it's basically just a stuffed animal, just squished down a bit, and Beware is a combination of bear and obviously a play on Beware because it's actually quite a dangerous Pokemon, but started looking cute. Then back to the grass types, we have Bunsweet, Steenie and Serena. We have first up, generally they're all based on mangosteens, because if you look at the picture of the mangosteen and look back at all three of these Pokemon, you can find links to the designs there. Obviously, Bunsweet's top looks very much like the tops of those fruit. Serena's sort of middle section looks a lot like the actual inside of the fruit. There's a lot of links there. In terms of names, Bunsweet is a combination of bounce and sweet, because I assume it bounces around a lot, and Steenie is a combination of the second half of Mangosteen and then Teenager, so playing on the fact that it's the middle evolution. Finally, Serena is a combination of Serena, which is a type of Russian monarch, and Serene, just linking into the fact that it's a very queenly being. Then we have a fairy type in Comfy, which is based on basically the layers you get given in Hawaii, the hang around your neck, lay of flowers. Then its name is a combination of comfy, because I suppose they are quite comfy to wear, and just building in lay again there. Next up, we're getting a bit psychic in here with Oranguru. It's based on an orangutan, obviously, and similarly here, its name is a combination of orangutan and guru, due to the fact that it's a psychic type and sort of a very wisdom-like Pokemon. This was followed up by its sort of counterpart Persimmon, which is based on a ruffed lemur or a black and white lemur. You can clearly see the correlation there. And in terms of name, it's based on sort of a combination of Pass and Simian. Simian being obviously linking into monkeys and such, and then Pass linking into the fact that it carries around this ball and it's got like a team mentality, linking into obviously American football and similar types of sports. We follow this up with some more bug types with Wimpod and Golisopod, and they're based on isopods. Now isopods is a type of crustacean, so it includes stuff like woodlice as well, but in terms of what they're based on, obviously they look a bit like woodlice, but generally look like the more monstrous isopods, and you can see one picture here. It's quite creepy in my opinion. Wimpod is a combination of Wimp and Isopod, and then Golisopod is a very similar combination of Goliath and Isopod, because that thing, imagine if that thing was huge like Golisopod is, I would be pretty scared of it. I don't know about you. Next up we have some ground types again with Sandygast and Palosand. No bets for guessing what they're based on, a pile of sand and then obviously a sandcastle. And then names reflect that, with Sandygast being a combination of Sandy and Gast, which is a type of spirit, a type of ghost. And then Palosand being a combination of palace and sand. It's a palace, or it could be play on words and be Palisand. It's a pile of sand. Then we have another water type in Pyukumuku, based on a sea cucumber. Obviously it's a sea cucumber Pokemon. And in terms of its name, it's probably sort of a mashup of puke, cucumber and mucus, due to the fact that we know Pyukumuku pukes some stuff up. It looks like a sea cucumber, and obviously it has a lot of mucus on it, as you find out if you play the game. This is followed up by some Chimera Pokemon, which are Type Null and Sylvalia. As I just said, they're based on chimeras, which is basically like a combination of animals, so these guys are a combination of Pokemon. In terms of what Type Null's name is based on, well, generally it's just nothingness. It's nothing, it's Type Null. It's got this mask on it which is suppressing its power, so it's nothing, it's just Type Null. Whereas Sylvalia has access to all the different types, and it's a combination of Silver and Ally. It's Ally because it's actually a friend, and Silver might be linked into the fact that it was built to, kill the Ultra Beasts. So it might be that, like Ultra Beasts is kryptonite, and vampires are, immune to, or vampires are vulnerable to Silver. Maybe Sylvalia's name comes from there. To follow this up, we have Minior, the rock flying type meteor Pokemon, obviously clearly based on a meteor. And in terms of the name, it's a combination of Mini and Meteor, since it's a very small Pokemon, and it's once again based on a meteor. Then we have Kamala, which is based on a koala, who would have guessed, with its name being a combination of Coma and Koala, Coma linking into the fact that it's the drowsing Pokemon and is always asleep. Then we have Turtonator. In terms of its design, it's based on a Matamata turtle, which has a very similar shell, as well as also possibly based on a landmine due to the fact that you can touch it and it explodes. And similarly, its name is a combination of turtle and detonator, as in the detonator for the explosive. Then we have Togedemaru, the Pikachu of this generation. It's probably based on a hedgehog or a spiny little rat thing because it has spikes on its back. And its name is a sort of combination of a few different things, starting off with Toge, which is Japanese for thorn or spine. Then we have Denki, which is Japanese for electricity, and finally Maru, Japanese for round. So basically, spiny, round, electric thing. Yeah! Follow this up with Mimikyu, the other Pikachu of this generation. It's based on, sort of the silly little ghost outfits you have, where you just put a cloth over you, draw some eyes on it, similar to that, and also the design linked to Pikachu as well. And its name comes from Mimikyu, so it's going to mimic you, or mimic Pikachu as well. So that's probably the link in there. We have another single Pokemon next, which is Bruxish, the water psychic type. It's based on either a reef fish or a triggerfish. They're both pretty colourful types of fish, so it could be either of those. And in terms of its name, it's a combination of bruxism and fish. Bruxism being the medical term for when you grind your teeth together, which obviously Bruxish does quite a lot. Then we have Trample, which is based on a Chinese dragon, because the design linking is very similar there. And in terms of the name, it's a combination of dragon and grandpa. Obviously the dragon being because it's a dragon type, and grandpa being because it looks pretty old, as well as the fact it's a fairly caring Pokemon, and I suppose most grandpas are fairly caring. Then we have Delmise, the spooky anchor Pokemon, which Design-wise, it's clearly based on an anchor with some algae growing on it, as well as having a ship's wheel attached to it as well. In terms of its name, it's a combination of demise, so it's your demise, and helm, obviously being the fact that it's got the wheel on it, it's got the helm of the ship with it. And yeah, that's that basically. Then the pseudo-legendary for Alola, we have Jangmo, Hakamo, and Komo. In terms of design, they're sort of based on the Ankylosaur because they have the scales and the protection, but generally they're more like theropod dinosaurs, so you could say that, or they could have some inspiration drawn in from Komodo dragons, because if we look at the names, we first have Jangling, which is the fact that Janglamoha has scales that jangle around, and Mo'o, which is the Hawaiian word for dragon, so that makes a lot of sense there. Akamo's name is a combination of Haka and Mo'o, Haka being a type of fighting dance, and obviously they're fighting types, so it makes a lot of sense. And then Komo's name comes from probably a combination of Komodo as well as Mo'o again. We're going to follow up now and jump into legendary Pokemon, starting up with Tapu Koko. Now, Tapu is the Hawaiian word for sacred or holy, and it makes sense because these guys are the guardians. Koko is then the Hawaiian word for the sound that chickens make, so chicken cackling, the sort of thing. And in terms of design, obviously we have Rooster, and as well as the fact that it's based on generally a totem pole, much like the other Guardians. Speaking of the other Guardians, we have Tapu Lily up next, which in terms of design is based on a butterfly. You can't really say a huge amount, but generally that's what links in best, with the proboscises coming from its head and such. And name-wise, it's a combination of Tapu once more, and Pulelehua, which is the Hawaiian word for butterfly. Then we have Tapu Bulu, whose name is obviously a combination of Tapu and Bull, and in design, obviously sort of based on a bull as well as a totem pole once again. And then for the last of the Guardians, we have Tapu Fini. Name-wise, Tapu and Fin makes pretty good sense, and then looking at its design, it could be a dolphin, you could say, it could be a narwhal, or it could be a marlin, because they all look fairly similar to it, so either of those you could choose and it would be pretty good fit. Then we come to the first ever legendary evolution line with Cosmog, Cosmoem, Solgaleo and Lunala. First up, in terms of design, Cosmog is based on sort of cosmic clouds of gas and dust. That's what it starts off as. Cosmoem is probably based on some kind of protostar, or sort of when the gases start collecting together, and then it either expands into either a sun in terms of Solgaleo, or a moon, not really a moon, but you guys get the idea, it's linked in terms of Lunala. In terms of those design though, Solgaleo is probably based on the lion that eats the sun from Alchemy, and then Lunala, being a bat, is linking into the fact that bats are generally seen at night when the moon is out. Name-wise, Cosmog is a combination of Cosmos and Smog. Cosmoem, similarly from Cosmos. In terms of the second half of the word, I just don't know. And then Solgaleo is a combination of Sol, and then Galileo because he's linked to the planets, the sun, etc. Or just Leo because that is a word that means lion. Then Lunala is a combination of Luna and Ala, which is the Latin word for wing. Moving on though, we have the Ultra Beasts coming up, starting off with Yu-Gi-Oh! 1 Symbiont or Nihilego. In terms of design, it's clearly based on some kind of jellyfish, and in terms of name, it's a combination of Nihil and Ego. Nihil is like nil, basically, so there is no ego in this Pokemon because it has no sort of personality, it's just sort of there. And then moving on, we have next up Buzzwole, which, looking at its design, you think maybe mosquito and then like a really muscular person. That's possible, but there also might be an underlying link for all the Ultra Beasts that they're based on types of plankton, and this Buzzwole, could be linked to this kind of plankton here, which is like a sort of a baby crab larva, really, in a way. In terms of name, it's probably a combination of Buzz, because obviously mosquito, Buzz, and Swole, so you're really swole, man, you're really muscular. Next up, we move on to Yu-Gi-Oh! 2 Beauty, which is obviously Yu-Gi-Oh! 2 Absorption's counterpart, with Pheromosa. Now, in terms of the name, it comes from pheromones, since we know it's a beautiful Pokemon that uses pheromones to manipulate people, but in terms of design, it's probably based on a copepod, as we said before, which is a type of plankton, linking into this underlying sort of theme again. We then move on to Yu-Gi-Oh! 3, which is known as Lightning, and its name is Circuitry. Its name comes from circuitry, because it looks like electrical wires, so it makes a lot of sense. And that could be a design basis there, or it could be based on another type of plankton again, this time a Corathron, which looks very similar in some ways with sort of the spiky bits, I suppose. Then we have Celesteela, the first Yu-Gi-Oh! 4, Yu-Gi-Oh! 4 Blaster, and its name is a combination of Celestic and Steel, which links into its origin, which is obviously, first it looks like bamboo, but it also links into the tail of the bamboo cutter. Now this is a story, I think it's a Japanese story, and it's about a tiny baby girl found inside bamboo, okay, and she was called Kaguya, and in terms of Japanese name, this links into the Japanese name there, but it's actually, she came from the moon, and Celesteela is available in Pokemon Moon, makes a lot of sense, And there's also the fact that Kaguya's hair always sort of looks very similar to the top of Celesteela, so that's a link in there. Obviously Celeste, linking into there. But in terms of Plankton, it could look a lot like a Celestium. If we look at it, it looks a bit similar in terms of its spiky top and its arms at the bottom. Then we have UBO4, Kartana, the other UBO4 of course. In terms of design, possibly based on origami, but again looking at Plankton, it could be based on an Asterion-melepsis, which I guess looking at its star-like nature could make sense. In terms of name, it's probably from Katana because it has sort of very sharp and katana-like arms and body parts. Then we have the last Ultra Beast here, which is Gus Mode. It's probably based, I couldn't really, apart from just a crab in general, it could link into Plankton again, being a crab megalopa, another type of plankton there. And in terms of the name, it's probably a combination of Guzzle and Lord, so Guzzle being the fact that it eats a lot, and then Lord being possibly the Lord of the Ultra Beasts, or the final Ultra Beast, so it could be a link there. But then we have not an Ultra Beast, but another legendary Pokemon in Necrozma. In terms of its design, it's mentioned in the game, it's based on a prism. It reflects light, but it also lets light through it, and in like a prism way. And in terms of the name, it's a combination of Necro and Ozma. Now, Necro is the Latin word for death, and then Ozma is the sort of term that was used for Project Ozma, which is the first sort of initiative to discover life outside of our solar system. So is this link that Necrozma comes from beyond the Earth? We don't know quite yet. 2 Pokemon left though. First is Magearna. We've seen her for a while, or seen it for a while. But in terms of name, it's a combination of Machina, because obviously machine, and gear. And then in terms of its design, it's based on a Karakuri puppet, which is basically a traditional Japanese mechanized puppet of sorts. And then finally, the last Pokemon in Generation 7, we have Marshadow, which in terms of its design is actually based on a Night Marcher. Now, Night Marchers come from Hawaiian mythology, and they were sort of ghosts of ancient Hawaiian warriors, and at night they would come forth from their burial sites to march out past battles or to other sacred places, so linking into the fighting type and the ghost type there for Marshadow. In terms of its name, this gives us some link here, probably a combination of March from Night Marcher as well as Shadow. Night Shadow makes a lot of sense that it's combined up there. So, that is it for Pokemon Origins Generation 7, guys. That's the overview there. I shall be doing more in-depth episodes on these Pokemon to find out, more stuff about their design and look at some more intricate things for some of them, but generally this is your overview for Generation 7. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button down below and let me know what you think about this. Are you sort of liking the, a lot of Hawaiian references here, or would you like to see more? Don't know. Let me know down below what you think about it, but this is going to be it for today, so I shall be seeing you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.